Okay, good morning and welcome. I am looking for you. I'm having trouble today, as you can imagine. Hold on just a second. Let me see if I can find you. Good morning. I'm Deanna. Welcome back to Coffee Time. I'm just making sure. Yes, I gotcha. All right. And volume up. So I'm so sorry about that. Happy Monday. Great to see you. I was having a bit of a struggle this morning and I realized I hadn't posted the link in our Facebook group for coffee time this morning, so I will doctor that link up in a few minutes. Our Facebook group, if you're looking for the link, is Rug Hooking and Punch Needle Club. I'm Deanna from Ribbon Candy Hooking. Happy Monday. I hope it was a great weekend. I am sorry for the delay and I'm sorry for the late post. I'm going to just start the show slowly because of my era. I know there'll be a few people logging in late, but I know by far most people are logging in very late, like after work. Kirsten, good morning. I was just sending you messages on my drive in. Robin, good morning. Great to see you in sunny Wisconsin. Not us. We are super gloomy. It is not helping the energy of the day to get this kind of rain, but we desperately need it. Cindy, great to see you. Good morning. Kaz, good morning. Great to see you. Congratulations on the wedding this weekend. It looks like it was a huge success, and your beautiful English garden rug was a huge success. I also noticed that you had your vintage mushroom latch rug that you made as a gift up, and that looked beautiful too. It looked like a gorgeous event. I loved the way that everyone was dressed, and it looked just idyllic. It looked like it went great. Congratulations to your son and his wife and to you, the whole family. Kirsten, I think I already did. If you notice that the link isn't there, share it. There are a bunch of different technical things going on this morning that are stumping me a little bit. So if it doesn't seem like it's there, yes, please share. I just shared it like 1 minute ago. Linda Ann, great to see you. I'm sending you some stuff out today. I've had a bit of dyeing to do and it's been nonstop. Crystal, Velma's at summer camp. Is she that little one? Oh, I hope she's having a great time. You must be missing her. Are you feeling okay? I mean, it's exciting to have some free time for sure, for sure. And it's great to see you. It's great to see everybody. Oh, it was the perfect wedding. I'm so happy to hear that. Karen, great to see you. I'm so confused with days right now. We had such, I think, a great Friday night. I really enjoyed our cocktail time on Friday. I hope you were able to catch it. It was a lot of fun. We had our gallery night, and we were looking at the work of a lot of buddies in our group who had sent in work. um, just beautiful pieces, a lot of sort of variety of subject, of technique. It was so much to look at, and I'm really looking forward to our next gallery night. It's going to be every third week. So go ahead and send some stuff to me at Ribbon Candy Hooking if you want to look together at something that you're working on or a project that you're about to start. I would like Kat's Gallery, great to see you. Gayla, great to see you. Linda, great to see you. Sorry for that slow start. I'm glad that you made it here. Agenia, great to see you. I love this group too. I felt so lucky and excited I guess it was, what was it, Saturday. I posted something in the Facebook group, and I should really post more about it because I know not everybody is in the Facebook group. But my good friend, Rebecca Martin, her brand is Storyteller Wool, right? She's based in Colorado. She does a lot of teaching there. She came to town on Saturday night. She flew in at night at the airport here in Connecticut. So I went to pick her up and we stayed at my mom's house, had dinner out. And then yesterday we did some antiquing and I posted pictures of a lot of rugs. I mean, we saw a couple dozen rugs. We only went to 2 stores because we're super slow pokes. But we posted a bunch of stuff. But it was just so nice being with someone else who is in the business, who's busy with their brand, who's a rising star. She's more of a punch needle company, but she's at Sturbridge Village now, Sturbridge, Massachusetts, the public house, doing the Pearl McGowan thing right there. It's Pearl McGowan week there, and she's a junior, but people are being certified and taking classes and getting together, and it sounds like a wonderful itinerary this week for her. And on Wednesday, I'll just remind you that at the public house, Publick, right, old timey, in Sturbridge, they are having the Pearl McGowan Fairy Tale exhibit, and that is a big deal. We saw installments of it in Rug Hooking magazine, but this is the full blast thing with all the rugs up in one show. So if you are local, let me know. I will certainly go and be there, check it out, support, say hello to people I know who are there. If you are in the area, you need a ride, you know, I'm coming from the New Haven side. I'm happy to go with you. I'm just driving up just for the event and then coming right back. But I'm really looking forward to that. And I will well document that so we can all be looking at those fairy tale rugs. It'll be a lot of fun. Courtney, great to see you. Sue's great to see you. Oh, thank you, Linda Ann. It's been rough. It's been a lot of projects. Nancy, great to see you. Oh, I'm so glad you're feeling better. Always worrying, but you're better. That makes me feel good. Make sure you send the image because I still don't have your image for the next gallery night. I didn't see it attached. So it was wonderful spending time with her. And I just want to remind you, and I'll remind you again because I want to do a full blast video with Rebecca. You know, she also signed a deal with Rug Hooking Magazine this year for a book that will be coming out next year. So we are on the same schedule. They put their authors together like at the same time. She's one of the other authors who's coming out with her first book next year. So I'll keep you up to date on that too because we did a lot of talking about those projects and her book sounds wonderful. So interesting. So more on that later, but I just wanted to remind you when those books come out and that we start that whole circuit, we'll be together a lot. In the same place a lot and appearing together at the same places a lot. And she's just such a great person, such a great personality, and such a kind, smart person, fun. And again, her brand is Storyteller Wool, so make sure you have a look at that. Just remember that she is at the promo gown thing this week, so she's not at home doing orders. Just give her like the classic hot minute to get back into it if you're ordering from her site, as you should, because she's got beautiful yarns. So that's happening. And I want to also remind you that this week I'm running the show today, tomorrow, Tuesday, and then on Friday night, cocktail night. Because on Wednesday I'll be at the Pro McGowan event. And unfortunately on Thursday we have a family funeral, so I've got to be out of the state for that. Just constant. But I'll be here with you tomorrow, Tuesday, and again on Friday for cocktail night. And that will be tons of fun. Oh, is it Swelter? Jane, great to see you. Thank you so much for your lovely email yesterday. I'm just waiting for a window of time to answer it. Wouldn't you think I would have a wonderful window of time when I woke up at God knows what time in the middle of the night with all of these things in my head, things I needed to get done. And I got out of bed at 4 a.m. on the button because I'd been awake so long. I just thought, forget it. And I went downstairs and I started finishing the Monet stuff. If you are signed up for the Monet class, be looking for the email attachment this afternoon. I've got the things together for you to print for our exercises during class. This coming Designing Like Monet class is going to be very heavy in games, exercises, and you drawing. It's going to be walking you through it. You're going to end up with so many Monet style compositions for your rug making. Your head is going to be spinning, right? It's going to be wonderful. I feel I've really nailed it this time. Not to toot my own horn too much, but I've got some really great, fun, foolproof exercises. Not that I think you're fools. So it's going to be a lot of fun Wednesday night and Sunday night. You pick which one you want to do. It doesn't matter to me. But I ended up going back to bed at like 6 a.m. because I felt so sick, you know, and weird and tired, and it was still dark out. So I'm off kilter today. But I have last week's show, right? Since I was not doing well last week, I was planning to run a show last Monday that I'm running today, looking at some of the rugs that are currently on the internet. And we've done this before. It's always worth looking at what's out there. I have a slideshow ready for us, looking at what's out there for sale on different websites and seeing in terms of value and you appraising something you may be collecting, investing, or just getting inspiration from what's out there because many of the designs that I pulled are antique designs. So thus they are copyright free. With these old designs, you can just do them your own way and you don't have to answer to anybody. But it's always worth looking at what's out there currently because that is the market. I'm always reminded when I post something like I did yesterday when I'm out on a toot looking at antique stores and I'm finding tons of rugs. I know that it's not like this in other parts of the country. I wish we could all have this great experience of just going out and finding lots of rugs. I didn't buy any rugs yesterday because none of them were ones that I really needed to have, but they were all lovely. And maybe I'll share that later in a coffee time. Maybe on the next coffee time, we'll look at the rugs that I saw when we were at our field trip last week at Cogswell, Grant, and Beauport, and also the rugs that were out yesterday in the stores. They were just a lovely, lovely group of rugs. But I want to look at these together because these are ones that you could get in theory if you wanted to, if they really spoke to you. Hey, Carol. Hey, Dave. Good to see you. Oh, we're getting such mixed weather. It's very stormy for us here. I see there's lots of bright sun and then lots of terrible storms. And in Wales, UK, it is sweltering warm. Oh, it's a mixed bag, right? It's that time of the summer, right at the peak of the summer. Let's see what we've got. I can't even. Oh, wait a minute. This was from Gallery Night. That was our last one from Gallery Night. Wendy, that was you. All right, so let's come out to our slide. I've got quite a few to look at this morning. Let's see what we've got. This is the first one I pulled up. Obviously, this is an older rug, and make comments and give me your thoughts as we go along. This is an antique rug dated 1888. Sometimes when we're looking at rugs that have a year, it really is not the year, and you just know that. For example, I saw a beautiful rug yesterday. I put it in the Facebook post that I made. It was 1985, and it was 1985. It was like a Pen Dutch rug, and it looked like it might have been a wedding rug or a couple's rug or something like that, commemorating something specific. But often you do see rugs that say, for example, 1888, and you can see that they were made yesterday. And sometimes it refers to a building or a place or something special within a family. This to me does look like an 1888 rug. This sounds exactly right to me. This appeared on eBay. It should still, I think this probably closed. I'll have to check the past auction, but it was over $200 when I was watching it. And it was called Folk Art Hooked Rug with Chickens, dated 1888. And the seller was called Always Looking number 14. So just Always Looking 14. And the description simply said the color of the two chickens is closer to dark army green, not brown. And I can kind of see that with this coloring too. It's so scary. I know as somebody who has sold on eBay in the past to list things because a buyer can give you such a hard time on such a small point. This does look army green to me. It looks like it's probably like an army blanket or an army green uniform. I have lots of army blankets and uniforms that are this very color, not brown at all. Very, very different. But just a lovely composition with a nice marble cake background. You can see that there has been some fading over the years and that there are certainly legs under the chickens, but they're very hard to see. The combs on the chickens are super red, super bright. They have endured. I like the variety, the way that the chickens are hooked differently. The tails are very different. I guess maybe are these both male chickens, right? Of course they are, right? Because they have the gobblers on them. Their little beaks have receded into the background too, color-wise. These are all things that you could pop if you wanted to. These are all things that you could, do like localized painting with dye. If you wanted to pop the color again, for example, if you flipped it over and saw what the reverse side looked like. Let me see if there is a reverse side on this one, just to get a comparison of color. Let's see, there's some closer up. So there's more of a brown color mixed into the background. It's not really helping us with so no, if I were to buy this rug with the chickens, this is a great backing. It's smart that they did this. The first thing I would do is smell it. Make sure it's not damp and sort of moldy because sometimes, it's helpful to have a backing, right? In some ways it protects the rug, but it also makes it possible to keep dampness and moisture in there if there's any at all. So normally when I get a rug this age, this looks like a good backing. It doesn't look like there's water damage. It looks like that's a fold, kind of a crease in the back. Normally what I do is carefully open up the back a little bit depending on what my purpose is. If I have a rug that's very old, and I have had some on past coffee times, I open it up and take the backing off if it's musty because I think it's just not helping, right? It's just not helping the overall integrity if there's something that is damp, like eternally gross and damp attached to the rug. So if it's really bad, I take it off. If it's good, I still want to open it up and look at the back of it and see what's going on the back of the rug. It's like a doctor just doing a checkup after a very long interval. So it's worth, in my mind, just peeking in and seeing what you've got, if only to just check, oh, spoiler alert, if only to just check your colors. I'm going to come back to the front because it would be possible in theory if you were of the mind to retouch it, right, which would be a very cool project, to restore it, right? If you felt confident about doing that, it would make a lot of sense to open up the back and look at what that original color was. If you have dye swatches that you've done or you're looking to match the color, you could say, well, I know that this color is quite similar. I'm going to go real easy and start light, just really localized painting with Donna from Whispering Hill always says with like a paintbrush or a toothbrush, depending on the scale, right onto the loops to get that color back. In this case, for myself, I'd be tempted to redo the beaks and the feet, and I would absolutely leave everything else because that marble cake in the background is just gorgeous. This is an old rug. It's got a solid year on it. It's in good shape. You can see that the border is very crisp, nice corners. The edging is done nicely. I don't see any significant loss. I don't see any significant pulling. There is just, expected fading over the age of it. So all of that is to be expected and nothing out of the ordinary. It's an exceptional rug for this age, right? And the image is great. It's a nice folky image that would appeal to a lot of people. This is another very old one. This one doesn't have an age. This one said, and I think this one is still up there, it's called Antique Pictorial Hooked Rug with Dog and Duck! Exclamation point. Rare! Exclamation point. Ex-cond, C-O-N-D, exclamation point. I'm giving you the literal title in case you want to look it up. It is from Far-North-Antiques, and they are based in Whitefield, Maine. This rug is $225. Buy it now, so not a bidding situation, plus $20 for shipping. And the description says, antique pictorial hooked rug with dog and duck, rare, excellent condition, out of a New England estate, has old cotton backing, measures approximately 19.5 by 14 inches in size. This rug is antique clouds. This rug is antique clouds. I think they mean could be late 19th cent, but I would date it to first half of 20th cent, 1900 to 1940. Don't miss out on this rare antique folk art hooked rug. Feel free to contact me with any questions. Thank you, Andy. So I'm going to chime in with that. I think Andy's making a good call with that. It does look like an older rug to me. There's a couple things here that are considerations in my mind. I don't think it's a 1940 rug by any means. I think it's much later. I think it could be a late 19th century rug. The thing with this rug for me is the subject. And feel free to chime in too. Hey, Carol, good to see you. And Doreen, good to see you. You're not late. I was late. And it was all confusing getting the link up there. And I was just lost in space. The thing with this rug, and again, tell me what you think. When I see a subject like this, it's a dog shaking the not paw, what is it? The foot of, the little webbed foot of the duck. To me, this is a super whimsical subject. And in terms, this would not be a commercial pattern. In terms of a source, like the original person sitting with their charcoal or whatever, about to sketch out the shapes for this pattern and then hook it, the source is very specific. So, for me, we tend to see these kinds of whimsical, cutesy subjects, animals meeting, animals frolicking and dancing. I am tired. We see this more in like the 1920s, 1930s. But realistically, it is possible to see this kind of a subject in a children's book illustration from a Victorian era book. And if that is the case, if that is the inspiration, rather than, for example, a 1920s, 30s Deco era magazine where you see lots of these kinds of drawings as inspiration for people who are about to embroider a handkerchief or an apron, it is possible that if someone were looking at a Peter Rabbit style book, not with the dog, of course, but maybe like a Thornton Burgess style book with animals being the main characters, they might have come up with this subject, and then we get an earlier rug with a motif that will not come into popularity for a few more decades, right? Animals interacting in this manner. So the subject for me is tricky and it makes it hard to date. If it were just a duck standing alone and a dog standing alone, I'd say absolutely 1880s, 1890s by the look of the rug. But two animals interacting this way is kind of a later idea. That kind of humor comes in quite a bit later. So it's hard to put a date on this one, but certainly it is a sweet subject. It is a neat rug. Let's look at some more pictures of it, maybe get some more clues that way. This I thought initially was a clipped rug, meaning a person would have hooked it, rug hooked it, and hooked it maybe a little on the high side and then clipped it. Hi, Shirley, good to see you. Yes, Karen, absolutely. Juvenile subject is great for a children's room. Absolutely. Super whimsical and cute. It could be a farm rug where there were a lot of ducks and dogs, and maybe there is a specific story behind it, like a specific dog and duck had a friendship. You see this all the time on Facebook, right? So it's possible. It'd be so nice to know the backstory to this because it's real specific. But this I originally thought was a clipped rug, and when I took a lot of a closer look at it, I realized it is a hooked rug, not clipped. It's just very worn. It was certainly down on the floor. It's very worn, so some of the loops get kind of ground down a little bit. You see more of the cross section of it. Gives it a different look, more of a shaggy look. There is some height to it. It's real hard to say. Sorry, I'm having a freeze thing here. But you can see close up, it's hard to tell whether that sort of ragginess, ratty-tatties on the edges of the loops, or whether some of them are clipped, because I do see some full-on loops. It's very hard to say. It could be a combination. But the surface of it looks very much like a traditional rag rug. I included some of these pictures because not so much for the size, but because it gave us a better view of the piece itself. You can see, for example, with the white parts, that little dot of white in the background, it is much more ground down, and it could be clipped. It's really hard to tell. There are some loops there, though, so it could be a combo. Who knows? But it does have that look of a rag rug rather than hooked rug because it's not a tidy-looking rug, is it? It is very sort of traditional in terms of the technique that it's done in. It's very folky. It's a very naive-looking drawing. Classic folk art. So I thought all of these close-ups were a bit helpful. For me, I'm just going to see, yeah, okay, that's the back. So I'll show you that as well. Let me just see what I've got. Okay, I'm going to hold on that. The back of this could also be a clue because this, to me, really strongly looks like Civil War era fabric. So this is also tricky if you're a quilter because um, it could be fluffy yarn. I don't know. We'll look at the close-ups again, Karen, but it does look like material. It looks almost like there are some binding materials in there. I'll come back to that in a second. But if you're a quilter, you know that there is always a problem with seeing these kinds of fabrics because it looks like a Civil War era fabric. But if you're a quilter, you know that Keepsake Quilting reissued all of these Civil War era prints in the 1980s and 90s. And that makes it tricky because it could be a new binding. If it's not a new binding, then this is certainly a late 19th century rug. It's very hard to say. There are some really conflicting clues in this rug. But to me, this doesn't look like yarn. I'm seeing a lot of cotton. It doesn't really even look like wool. And you know what it could be, and this is something that I'll post about a little bit more. Catherine, good to see you. You're drinking your tea. That is okay. It's a lot of tea drinking and coffee drinking, I think, today. Jane, maybe you are the exception because you are so far ahead of us in Europe. And if Gail logs on and she's in Australia, she's absolutely allowed to drink a cocktail at this time of day. But when I was doing, this is a bit of a detour, but just something to think about. When I was doing the tours of the houses last week with our group in Cape Ann, when we went to Cogswell Grant, there's a huge collection of folk art, right? It's true folk art. So it's the toppermost, poppermost, most expensive stuff. And one of the things that was being widely collected in the house by the Little family, they were the folk art collectors who owned the house for a time. Have you heard of a tape loom? Tape loom. And what it is, it looks like a cutting board. It looks almost like a fish board. It's got carved into it, and I'll take some pictures of this and I'll make a post if this is interesting to you. This was very interesting to me. I'll also post photographs of the tape looms that are present at Cogswell Grant. Looks like a long, skinny cutting board or fish board because of the length of it, with all of these cuts into it, carved into it, long parallel lines. For a moment, I thought it was a pill rolling board, if you've ever seen those in old apothecaries, right? But it wasn't, because all of the lines were the same width and the same distance apart. What it was and the holes went right through the board. It was a tape loom, which meant that you could clip to the top of the loom thread, almost like lace making. And you could then, using the thing as a loom, weave in all of these cotton threads. This is a terrible description. It's very specific, and you're going to need photo to back this up visually. You'd weave all of these threads, like thread size, thread gauge material, not yarns, to make tape, which we now called bias, right? So if you think of like a cotton bias, it's more of a twill material, that is tape. And if you sometimes look at a very old rug, a 19th century rug, early 20th century rug, right to present, but if you sometimes look at those early rugs and you think, how did they get the bias tape on them so early? It was because they were making it at home on these little boards called tape looms, right? Very labor intensive, like just weaving it. And you would weave whatever amount you needed and then bind your rug with it. So when you see those early tape bindings that look like modern bias tape, they are being made on these little board contraptions. Um, anyway, my point is that using one of those tape looms, you do maybe end up with extra tape because this particular rug, to me, um, for all intents and purposes, we'll call it duck and dog, looks like some of this is more of a tape material than some kind of homespun, any kind of silk, velvet, wool, or cotton. It looks a little bit thicker, particularly that kind of khaki color that's in the border. But this brings up all, this particular piece for me brings up all, oh, you have a tape loom. You use it to teach history in your class, Kaz. That's fantastic. Most people do not know what a tape loom is, so that is super interesting. You are ahead of the game. I'm going to make a post about these things because they have such strong crossover. Hey, Shannon. They have such strong crossover to what we do with rug hooking. I think I'll make a post about this in our Facebook group and maybe make it into a blog in Ribbon Candy Hooking so that everybody can see it. Or if you even Google tape loom, you'll see what we're talking about. They were sometimes very decorative and they're very collectible. If you find them at an antique store and the person knows what they are, you know, it can be quite competitive because they are classic folk art. Just like plain cutting boards, right? If you see cutting boards at antique stores and you're thinking, God, that would be, especially if they're shaped, God, that would be perfect for my miniature punch Russian punch piece. And you look at the price, it's like $200, $300 for a little cutting board because it's unique and it's folk art. That's sometimes hard to take, and it's hard to think about cutting them up to display a piece of mini punch, although it looks beautiful when you do. Um, there are all kinds of boards and things that you can use, even those like butter, what are those butter paddles, right? Sometimes they're very grooved. Those are great for display and things like that too. Same shape, but much smaller. So maybe I'll make some kind of a post about all these different, very antiquated tools that can be confusing, but in terms of collecting tools that relate to rug hooking and rug making, the tape loom is one of the biggies, and we hardly ever talk about them. So, to be continued on duck and dog. If you have thoughts about it, feel free to chime in. Let me come back to where we were here. I thought it was a really interesting rug. Oops, wait a minute. I'm a little bit further up. I wish you could see what I was looking at here. You'd be so proud of me that I could even navigate it. So that's the back of that, and that brings us to this rug. It's a bit of a new, definitely a bit of a newer rug. I think this is just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. Antique folk art this is the title on eBay. Antique folk art rectangular silhouette decorated hooked rag rug, 28x meeting by 37.75 inches as is. And it is being sold by a seller called Inks, INKS, Pot, P-O-T, Gallery, all one word, in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. I think that this rug is a grand bargain at $95 plus 15 shipping. The description says, as found, for repair restoration, needs work, but worthy. I would absolutely agree with that. I think this is a phenomenal piece. Let's look at this together. This is a unique piece, and I'm just going to get ready to show you some close-ups. There's a few things going on here. This is a very heavy hit or miss piece. It is actually pieced together like a pieced quilt, like a patchwork quilt. I'm going to show you pictures of the back to support that. Whitney, great to see you. No problem. I have to send you a message. I could not find any cutters for you, Whitney, that were not 2 3s. And I know that is not what you're looking for. I'll send you a more in-depth message as soon as I'm done. This is an interesting piece. It's got a military feel, right? Right in the middle, we're seeing some kind of marching men with carrying rifles, that kind of thing. I would think that this is probably an 1890s, 1900 era rug. It could be 1910. I don't think it's newer than that. There is a real push to use the hit or miss technique on this rug. I think either this is a series of what began as stair treads that have been pieced together. That's entirely possible. Or it is the beginning of a runner that was pieced together. Or it was a full size runner or stair runner that had later been dismantled or separated or broken up. Hard to say without knowing the backstory, but what we are left with is a beautiful geometric piece of a rug with original silhouettes on it. I like how there is that sort of military feeling, very sort of revolutionary or even Civil War feeling soldier panel up top. And at the bottom, there's a series of female figures. Let's look at some closer up pictures here. It is an old rug. There has been this huge push to do hit or miss style. The person who made it obviously felt that they were comfortable working in silhouette. They had enough black to do silhouette. Maybe they had previously done cross stitch or some kind of needle art where they were more comfortable working in silhouette. Maybe they just felt like I have a little of a lot of colors and not so much black, so this makes sense. Not knowing what the larger piece, and I am convinced that it was a larger piece, not knowing what the larger piece looked like, it's hard to know because we can't see what the full picture was or what was meant to be. We're just seeing two parts of what might have been a much larger rug. Does anybody know, is anybody up on their Sherlock Holmes, the canon stories? The Dancing Men was one of these great Sherlock Holmes stories where he goes to this real country estate, and this woman from Chicago, right? She'd escaped from her mob family in Chicago and found this idyllic life with this very normal, nice man in the English countryside, hoping to never be found. And suddenly, this pattern of these crazy silhouette characters starts popping up. It chalked like into stone and into park benches on the property of the estate where she's kind of hiding and living in England. And she kind of starts to unravel because she realizes that the dancing men are a secret language left over from the Chicago days that her family would use, you know, to secretly communicate. It was like a mob family with other members. So she realizes that she's been found. It's a wonderful short story, but this is what it reminds me of so much. I think that's why I'm the most attracted to this rug, because it is a silhouette, but it's a very curious silhouette. There's even the hint of using like little eye sockets on some of these characters. Very interesting. Some color loss on one of the characters with these semaphores. I don't know that word, Karen, semaphores. Paper cut looking figures. Could absolutely be paper cut figures. You know, during this time, using silhouettes in illustration, using silhouettes in books, if you have 19th century, early 20th century books, you know it's very common at the beginning of a book or on the end papers to use silhouettes. It would be a really natural thing. Hey, Anita, to copy silhouettes that you find, right? And maybe the only ones that they found were like the little girls with dresses and the military men. So who knows what the genesis of the pattern is, but I think they're so neat. They're so simplified and they're so neat. I love the color loss on this one because it just reminds us how vulnerable these textiles are to time. And how likely they are to change, and there's nothing to be done about it. It's part of the charm of looking at a piece this age. I love the hit or miss, right? I love the changes of directions. It creates all kinds of interest. Look at the amount of color and patterning that is in some of these original materials. It really is a thing. There has been considerable fading, but these colors have faded to pistachio and pink and rust. It's just dove gray, all of these variations of neutrals. They have become more neutral as time goes on. Karen says semaphores were used for ship to ship for communication. Okay, I don't know that at all. I'm gonna have to check that word out. That sounds very cool. Yeah, you could really be onto something there. That could have decoded what this whole thing is. I'm sure it's not a Sherlock Holmes reference. It just seemed so similar to me. It kind of charmed me. But this is what the thing looks like, right? These are individual pieces that were pieced together, and that's what made me think stair runner, because I'm thinking that the silhouettes might have been the riser part, and the pure geometric hit or miss parts might have been the tread part that you would step on, a little less precious. Um, but in any case, because there is an alternating pattern for sure, in any case, they are pieces, separate pieces that have been sewn together, laced, right, like this, almost like a braided rug kind of lacing. So these supporting pictures really help looking at the back really helps. And I could not help but think, I mean, just an idea, looking to see how much $95 plus 15 shipping. That's a very good price for a buy it now. I could not help but think, for someone who, for example, has like a staggered staircase, right? And you have like 4 steps here, landing, 4 steps there. What a great piece this would be to unpick and end up with 4 risers, right? I wouldn't use them as treads because I would not want to step on pieces this age. But what a cool thing it would be to rescue these for that money. It's like $25 a piece, and to put them on your series of 4 risers. If you have a series of 4, it's like these are meant for you. I just think these are so beautiful. I hope that the right person finds them, loves them, rescues them, and displays them in their daily life. They are so worthy. You can see the one of the little girls has been repaired, right? You can see that because in this photo, that's the top one, it's been backed, and they have hooked through the backing layer and the front layer, which means a repair has been done. You do not want to step on these. You want to even tidy them up. But if you are using them as risers, you are not stepping on them. Your eye is just looking at them as you climb the stairs every time. Imagine the joy every time of being able to look at these pieces. They are so charming, and I do believe that they are old pieces. So something for you to think about, right? Now, I came across this piece, and this is a much newer piece. This is latch hook, as you probably have immediately discovered. This is entitled, again, eBay, vintage, but it's spelled VTG, 1960s, psychedelic, pink/purple, abstract, latched, hooked, wool, rug, kit, U as in the letter U, finish. $39.95 plus 12 for shipping. I think that is a very good price for this. You know, I know not everybody is a great latch hook fan. If you can, but the follow-through thought is, but if you are not a great latch hook fan, certainly, even for people that do not like that shaggy look, a piece like this that has more of a pop art mid-century look than a sort of very vintage, very specific pictorial look, I think an abstract will always appeal to more people than, for example, a kitted vintage latch hook. Doreen says semaphores are flags used on ships. Oh, as flags with the sailor using his. Okay, I know exactly what you mean now. Sorry, I'm in gallery night. I know exactly what you mean now. That rings a bell because at Mystic Village, which is like a living history museum here in Mystic, Connecticut, Mystic Pizza, that same Mystic, they do have a whole exhibit of flags that have sailors holding up flags in different positions. I didn't realize that's what they're called. That is so cool. That's a great idea for a design, right? That's a great idea for a design. Lynn, that's okay. I was late too. I have a brain problem today and I was having all kinds of problems. Great to see you in Tucson. I'm glad you're there. So, you know, while we are not all hugely into latch hook, I am. This is a great piece. It's an abstract. It's pretty universal. It's got a lot of color. It's got a lot of energy. It is a beautiful textile. I would defy anybody to say that this is not a beautiful textile, well worth your time. There's only a little bit that needs to be left to do. Kaz, who just finished a beautiful mushroom latch hook for your son and his new wife because they love that sort of vintage 1970s look. Kaz says latch hooking wasn't bad at all. You can find a lot of vintage ones made in the U.S. on eBay. Absolutely, you can. The vintage ones are so much fun, especially if you or someone like your son and his wife in your life love those vintage ones, then it is such a joy to find a vintage one and complete it. You can always pull out some of those pre-cut acrylic materials, right? Shieldcraft, Caron, any of those. You can always pull some of them out, add wools, add mohairs, add materials that if in your mind the problem with latch hook is that it's not tactile enough for a wool lover, you can always pull out some of that and add some other materials to give it a bit more of a blast. If that's the complaint with it, right, you can always add fancy fibers, all these crazy sort of fuzzies, all these new materials that are available. You can always add those, mix those into an existing kit. You can always hook along with the pre-cut piece in the same pull, in the same knot, you can always add a little bit of mohair, a little bit of lace yarn, a little bit of eyelash yarn or ladder yarn, those novelty fuzzies. You can always do that. It gives so much extra texture, right? And then you end up, if you want a piece that looks very avant-garde, very Dion Fitzpatrick, your latch can really look like that, just adding a little bit of mixed fiber. It's a very easy way to change the look. With this piece, you can see on the far right that this was a camouflage color, but that the person did it in a different color palette. It might be that the kit was available in multiple colors, but certainly the piece that they supplied her with on the far right is greens, and she did it in pinks, purples, and reds. So interesting thought here too. Now let me show you, if you're interested in finishing this piece, there might be a race to the finish because it is a glorious piece. Oh, there is a bit more than I thought. But the material is there. So you can see how much is done versus how much is left. This is a gorgeous piece. And here are some more supporting photos. So they do have a lot of the material that is left that you can just fill in. Let me see if there's one more. Nope, that's the next one. So interesting, if you're interested in latch, that one, as of at least this morning, was still on there. Now, this is I wanted to say one more thing on the subject of latch. Let me see if I can remember. I thought, don't let me forget to tell them because this is really handy if I can think of it. To be continued. I forgot what I was going to say. But a side thought, this is not what I was going to say. If you do find latch backing, right, it is, particularly if you are not in the US or Canada, if you are in a place where there is not a lot of rug hooking, if you do find latch hook backing and you are struggling for a backing, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, it is well worth trying to rug hook into latch hook backing. You need to cut a little bit wider if you're using wool strips, but it's a great opportunity to rug hook into latch hook background with just wider pieces. If you have that kind of a backing, it's a bit stiffer. You do not and cannot use a frame, so that problem's eliminated. But you can use a rug hook or you can use a latch hook, just Scotch tape the toggle down, right? Just use that and rug hook right through that backing. That works great. That works great. And I can guarantee you that if the original rug hookers had that as an option and didn't have to build frames with lots of tacks and nails holding everything in place, stringing the sides out, a lot of people would have opted to try that because they were already using very wide strips, like ripping their strips quite wide, goes great through latch backing. So when you're out thrifting or yard sailing it or flea market, you find these kinds of backings and you don't like the piece, think about getting it to flip it over to the white side and doing your own piece that way. Just drawing with a marker, whatever, you can put a picture under it and trace through like you would with fiber tape. Do something of your own, but what a great backing. It's hard to pass on those for me just because it makes a perfect backing for so many different materials. Let's see. Oh, I loved that latch piece. It was so good, so interesting. I hope somebody snaps that up. This is another great piece. Vintage folk art hooked rag rug. This is also eBay. Swan, dragonfly, lily pad, cotton fabric. So as you know, a lot of the rugs that we see, 19th, 20th century rugs, they are not wool. Wool is something we love to use now, but not everybody had wool to use. If you had, wool that was all, for lack of a better term, crapped out with holes or moth holes or whatever, rips, and had it, you might want to use your wool. But in a lot of early rugs, and this isn't particularly early, I would think this is a 1930s, 1940s rug, I think it's been washed, like washed, like if not in a washer dryer, but just been washed quite a few times for the fading. I don't think it's old enough to be, it's definitely not a 19th century rug. And I believe this is a commercial pattern, probably like an Aunt Lydia kind of a pattern, one of these early brands that did a pre-printed for you on burlap. I forget where I was going with that too. It's terrible when you wake up at 4. It just skewers the day. This is a lovely piece sold by a seller called Prickly, so Prickly, Pears, but it's spelled Pairaz. So Prickly Pears, P-A-I-R-A-Z, and they're in Arizona. That might be what the Arizona AZ is. This is only $26 plus shipping, and shipping is $16. So I think this is a bargain. We do see a lot of swans in the deco era, right? This is a big motif, swans with lily pads. We're still finishing up the Monet stuff for you for this coming week. I've been looking at a lot of lily pads, as you can imagine, for Monet, not swans. This is a very moment in time kind of an image. And you know, these kinds of patterns could be done in so many ways. I can't put my finger on the maker for this because although I've seen a lot of swans, I haven't seen a lot of swans with a lily pad. You're welcome, Lynn. I'm a huge fan of latch and trying different things, certainly trying the background, even if you want to keep your loops. So I just love a chance to talk about latch. Crystal, I also like the scalloped shell frame on this. It really adds a lot. You know, it almost reminds me of like kind of Birth of Venus Botticelli with like just a partial shell frame, if you see what I mean. It's like the negative of Venus. It's smart to do this because you kind of suggest a horizon line, and the horizon line is actually much further back, I think, on this piece where the dark begins, the light ends and the dark begins. But I do like the idea of framing off. It has kind of a bit of a early postcard or a greeting card look, doesn't it? They did this kind of device, these tricks with frames, adding prosceniums, different shapes that just added interest and gave you another opportunity to add a different color. It's really smart. It's very different than going all the way around the body of it with the same frame. It would give it a completely different look. This, to me, just gives you another design element and another chance to put in a color that picks up on the background of that water lily and the buds that are a little bit faded that are in the water. It's a really smart piece. The dragonfly is the same color as the beak. The use of black is really interesting. If you look at the body and the wings, it's very, very graphic. There is absolutely no sort of pretense here of trying to shade. It's very graphic, as was the Art Deco style, right? 20s, 30s, we are not looking at shading. We are not looking at fineness or of color or transition of color. We are looking at graphic lines. And shapes. And this piece is great for that. It is like a lot of other pieces, but for example, if you are a collector of swans, this is a great piece. I can't, let me see if I took closer up pictures of this. With kits of this era, they tend to all be hooked with yarn pieces and the yarn would come with the kit. So I would assume, oops, I'm sorry. Nope. I would assume, I hope that didn't do anything bad for you, that this came with, you know, I'm not sure. Let me see if I took an even closer one. That's the back. Let's first look at this together. I don't know. For me, that looks like wool. That looks like wool strips. That looks like maybe a 5. That doesn't look like yarn to me. So that's a bit of a surprise. Interesting. Yeah, most swans that I stumble upon are wool because they are kitted. And they are acrylic wool, that moth-proof stuff, or moth-proof, the wool blend stuff, and it's very, very coarse. This does definitely look like wool strips. I might be wrong. You know, my eyes are not what they used to be. Let's look at the back. This is done in a very orderly way, isn't it? Yeah, this definitely looks hooked to me, just looking at the way the lines go. It's a beautiful piece. It's very well bound, too. Someone really knew what they were doing. This is just expertly done. You know, these ovals, and it's not exactly an oval, it's a rectangular oval. These are hard to do. These are hard to bind. You can see all the strategic folds that you have to do to get the ease right on the back of it. It's beautifully done. It really is. You can see they've done a double line outlining that shell motif. Interesting. We are seeing the true colors. It is faded. The true colors are also quite soft, so it makes me think it's not that faded. It is interesting. It's a beautiful piece. Let's do one more piece today, and we'll pick this up tomorrow. Now, this is, assuming it's still there, I didn't check this morning, this is the piece of the day. Whether this is your taste or not, this is going to open up a whole different conversation for us. Oh, by the way, hang on a second. I didn't realize I had text for the Swan. The text on the Swan said, vintage folk art, hooked rug, rag rug, swan, dragonfly, lily pad, cotton fabric. This charming rug came from an estate sale. It measures 21 by 33 inches. It is made of cotton fabric scraps. They are hooked into burlap. The rug is in nice condition. It has been used. I see no noticeable stains. So that is super helpful. So that tidies that up. Very inexpensive rug to snap up good chance that Swan rug to do some touching up of color if you're interested in trying that technique that we talked about earlier in the show. This is the rug of the day in my mind. This isn't exactly my style, but get ready for this. This is almost like a what's it called when you play those games? Reaction game. First hand on the buzzer. This is an eBay find, and the title is Vintage Tree Abstract Latch Hook Rug Wall Hanging Completed Large 26x, meaning by 49. It is sold by DEE Dandy DANDY Delights in St. Louis, Missouri. The description says Vintage Tree Abstract Latch Hook Wall Hanging Completed Large 26 by 49, nicely completed wall floor latch hook rug in very good condition with only issues of one of the hangers is loose, meaning that to hang it on the back. So nothing to do with the integrity of the rug or the completeness of the rug. Otherwise great. Please see photos for condition, details. Measures 26 by 49. Happy to answer any questions. Get ready for this. $28 plus 18 shipping. Why am I going nuts about this rug? It's because it's not a latch rug. It's a raya rug. If you are not familiar with raya rugs, we are about to hit raya rugs hard. Raya is spelled R-Y-A. A raya rug is done on a completely different woven backing, not a latch hook backing. Raya rugs are worth a lot of money. They are not worth 20 anything. This is a very good design. I assume that this is a prefab design. And I just remembered what I wanted to say. Pause on thoughts for a second. One thing that latch hook rugs, contemporary latch hook rugs, and raya rugs have in common is that if you are following a pattern, I mean contemporary for latch, for raya always, if you are following a pattern, you are counting it like counted cross stitch. You are not getting a pre-printed piece. You have to count your holes. So think about that. If you order a latch hook kit like Kaz did of the mushrooms from eBay, that is pre-painted, right? That is done. That's not what I'm talking about. If you order a new latch hook kit from the new companies that are doing it, mine are not included. Mine, I have drawn the image onto the latch backing. I only have a couple latch hook patterns available at this moment. But most companies, if you buy a new latch hook kit, coming to Raya in a second, you are going to have to count your holes. That's the way that it works. And if you're expecting to get a pre-painted or a pre-drawn kit, you probably won't, because that is not how it works anymore. With Raya rugs, you are counting. A Raya rug, again, is worth a lot more money than a latch hook rug. This seller does not know that this is a Raya rug. The pattern gave it away for me. This is a Raya rug pattern. I have lots of books of Raya rugs. We have not yet discussed them, and I did not cover them in my first book. It was a subject that I chose not to cover because it's too large of a subject, and it did not deserve to be compacted into a quick chapter. So many people do not know what a Raya rug is. It was, for me, a crime to breeze over it with a few pages of text. A Raya rug is typically done of very nice high-end fabric, usually wool, right? You could do it with anything, but often wool, thinner gauge, and you are not using any kind of a hook or needle. You are knotting, right? You are knotting into a woven backing. It has a high shag pile that looks, for me, completely different than a latch hook rug because they are traditionally much finer. This is all hand knotted. Come here, baby. So this is what a close-up of a Raya rug looks like. Yes, at first glance, it does look like a latch hook rug. It is a completely different technique. It has a lot more value. Oh, honey, honey, honey. So pulling back, what distinguishes, this is a conversation for tomorrow, what distinguishes a Raya rug? Like, how can you look at it with your eye and say this is not a latch? Number one, it's not a traditional shape, right? She's okay. She just cry. She's okay. I didn't get enough time to pet the baby dog here, so she's down by my legs doing some cries. with these raya rugs, you typically get a different shape like this. They are Scandinavian in origin. This technique of knotting, it's very specific kind of a knot that makes a raya rug. Yes, when you pull up a latch hook rug, when you pull up each individual pre-cut piece of yarn, it does knot, but you are knotting with a latch tool. You are knotting with a hook. With raya rug, you are doing this with your hands. It is a specific knot. That's the only way that it stays. It is very labor intensive and it is very time consuming. You traditionally get, going back to the Scandinavian roots of this form, shapes that are more like this: long, skinny, large rectangles, large squares, wall hangings, also used for the floor. You could use it for either. Very high pile, very serious high art, right? We are looking at designs that even in the 70s and 80s, raya rug designs, because they must be very simple, very simple, are usually geometric, sometimes floral, but not rounded florals. We are usually looking at geometrics, and we are usually looking at the kinds of lines and the style that is borrowed from the 1930s, from the Art Deco period. We are looking at squared, Macintosh style flowers, trees, organics. This is a very abstract tree with lots of squaring and boxing out, typical of a raya rug. I have not had a chance to, number one, locate my raya rug books, number two, go through them and identify this pattern. But I'm sure that if you were to look up raya rug tree in a Google search, you would probably find this pattern done in many different colors by many people over the decades. It is a very good rug, is the point. I don't feel that I need this particular rug at this moment, but maybe you do if you are feeling it and thinking, I would like to get into this. This is what the back of a raya rug looks like. This is fabric. It is not latch canvas. It is not stiff. It is fabric. It's a very specific fabric. And it is knotted in this manner that you get strong rows. So when you look at the front of a raya rug, you're looking pattern-wise for something that is really different. If your eye is good for identifying 1930s deco era stuff and it feels deco, flip it over. And see if it has this kind of channel look to the back of it. And if it does, it is absolutely a raya rug. Karen says, I finished a rug my mom had started that I am wondering is a raya rug. If it is a raya rug, you wrap and knot the yarn around a long rectangle piece of wood and then trim. I don't think so. I think you're just knotting right into it. I'll have to do more research. I have never made a raya rug. I just have the definitive book on raya rugs that I'm going to show you in just a minute. But I don't think so. It sounds to me like if she's using that kind of a tool that she was using, she was doing maybe more of a loomed background. Let me know, Karen, how open the weave is that she was working into, because raya rug weave looks like a dish towel. It's not a tight weave, but it's not an open weave either. Let's look at it closer up for some more clues. So this is what the backing of it looks like. And this is what the seller means by one of the hangers is missing. You can see that has absolutely no bearing on the rug itself. You just take off the other two, create a better hanging system, or decide if you're going to put it on the floor. But with this photo, you're seeing what the finished knots look like at the top, right? And how the rug is finished with binding tape, or twill tape. So this is a very interesting rug. I was super excited to find this. I was tempted to write to the seller, and I probably should have, to say this is not a latch hook rug, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to first put it on the show, and if somebody is absolutely dying for this rug and it speaks to them, this is probably a 1970s era rug. I wanted to give you a chance first to have a whack at it. If you love it and you want to start your collection, this is the most inexpensive raya rug you will ever find. These are just beautiful pieces of art, and I want to continue this conversation tomorrow. The wood had a channel in it along the top. Kieran, if you can, send a picture, put on our Facebook group a picture of this tool, and if you have the rug handy, let's see the rug so far. That'll be kind of the definitive. Raya rug is spelled R-Y-A. So if you want to start Googling what these rugs look like this afternoon, then do. This is another raya rug that is currently on eBay. Let's pick up with this tomorrow. Let's pick up with the whole conversation tomorrow, because that'll give me a chance to reset myself, get some rest. I am not doing well at all. And find my raya rug book, which to me is like the raya rug Bible. And again, I have not made a raya rug, and I would like to say that I will in the near future, but the near future probably not. But I do have this great book, and I want to show it to you because the person who wrote the book has a great online presence and physical store, I think in Maryland. Um, Great Facebook page too. If you Google Raya Rugs, there's really just the one that comes up. And she's also the author of the book. So I'll show that on Coffee Time tomorrow. And we will look at the other Raya Rugs that are on eBay. There's tons. But finding Raya Rugs on both eBay, Etsy, and Facebook Marketplace, that's where for me I found a great wealth of Raya Rugs that I thought were super interesting. You're often finding rugs that are the same pattern in different color palettes. Some of them will speak to you more than others, but they are typically all abstract. Um, they don't have a huge amount, a huge like diverse color palette. There's usually just a few color families represented, many shades of each, but they have great charm, great appeal, and it is, I think, a wonderful thing to know what a Raya rug is, even if you are not interested in latch or Raya rugs, because it's just another feather in your hat as you're out in the world and you're shopping, flea market season, yard sale season. If you find a rug that is a Raya rug, it is a good thing if it's cheap to snag it. Make it available to other people, make other people aware of it, because the collectors for Raya rugs are there. There is a lot of value attached to the style of rug. I believe that the Raya rug will have a renaissance similar to other forms of rug making in the near future. And it's worth thinking about them and being able to recognize what they are, because at first glance, they do look like a latch hook rug, and they are certainly not. Um, Orange and turquoise one was beautiful. We're going to start with that one tomorrow, Lynn. That one is beautiful, and it's made the same way with the same knotting, but it's just a different material. So it has more of a mohair quality to it. It's a different blend. Of course, when you make a Raya rug, you can either buy the materials, like from the person if they're kitting it for you, or this is a very small niche, or you get your own materials and you do the technique, but you have to make sure that you're working with materials that are possible to knot. And the backing for Raya rug making is very expensive. So it's nice to start with a small piece, or to know that you are the kind of person that comes in with commitment and you will finish that piece come hell or high water, because matching the material that you're going to use to the backing in terms of ease of knotting is going to be a huge aspect to making this kind of a rug, any kind of a rug that is a hand knotted rug. So this is all stuff that we should talk about. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, I just woke up too early. I have too much on my mind. I started immediately thinking about things I needed to do, and I'm so excited about this Monet class. But I had a couple ideas in the middle of the night, thinking about, I've had this big thought in my head lately. When I get to, obviously, during the Monet class, and this is not a spoiler alert, you know we're going to get to Giverny, obviously. How could we not? You know, you could ask for your money back if we didn't go to Giverny with this class. But it's been a real thing for me, thinking about how best can I combine Giverny and make it special for people who plan to make a rug with the designs that are produced during the course of the class. And that has been my problem from the start, from it having announced this Monet class. Finally, in the middle of the night, I thought of a bunch of ways. They're related, but I thought of a bunch of ways that would be possible to translate Giverny's subjects, Monet's famous garden, to rug making in a way that is accessible, makes sense, and can even appeal to people who specifically only like primitive rug hooking, right? So I did it, but I did it in the middle of the night, and as a result, I got no sleep. I'm going to take a nap for sure. I'm going to attempt to anyway, but my word, I'm falling apart. Tomorrow, let's come back at it at noon Eastern Standard Time, and same time right here. And let's start with that slideshow, picking up where we left off with this conversation of Raya rugs versus latch hook rugs. And we'll look at some Raya rugs that are on eBay now. I'm sure you'll probably look at some in the meantime if you have time to go down that rabbit warren right there, right, Jane? It's such a fun place to be. I mean, it is such an exciting, different world, opening up new rug making possibilities, which we are all about on this channel, right? Anything textile is for us, I think, and beyond, right, and beyond. But let's pick up there tomorrow with, continuing the conversation. I will in the future try to make a small Raya rug so that we can see how that works. I also want to, within the month, make a wagon wheel rug. So there's a couple different forms I want to do with you in the immediate future, but my Raya rug would have to be very small, just to show technique, just so we can work it through and figure out as we go where the pratfalls are, right? It's a big investment making that kind of a rug because of the amount of material that you need going into it. The backing is expensive, and depending on what kind of fiber you're using, has potential to be off the charts. But what a beautiful high shag textile tapestry you would end up with at the end. That's what we're going to do tomorrow, and I will end tomorrow's episode concluding with some of the other hooked rugs that were in the original program for today. So some of the hooked rugs, bringing it full circle, that are available for sale now. So that's our episode for tomorrow. Watch the Netflix movie called I have Enola Holmes. That is a great movie. I've watched it a couple of times. I love that movie. That is super sweet. The sister of Sherlock Holmes. It was a great spinoff. I loved it. I really loved it. Thank you for the tip. But I will see you back here tomorrow at